Welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be discussing how we can build or how we can put and use a drop-down menu in Excel. A drop-down menu is a very powerful tool that can be just the missing part of your puzzle so that you can have a really good and powerful financial model. A drop-down menu is very easy to create. You can do that by just few clicks on Excel. To do that, we can go into the Data tab, and then we can click on Data Validation and Data Validation. A small data validation table will pop up. I'm going to allow a list, and now I can create the drop-down list into different options. I can either input the options that I want to show up in the drop-down list manually, like accounting, finance, internal audit, external audit, or I can go and select a list of options that I have already set on my workbook or on my worksheet. Let's do both. If I go for the manual one, I'm going to go for accounting, finance, internal audit. Press OK. We're going to have that small down arrow. And if you hover over the cell, you can click on it. Accounting, finance, internal audit. If you want to do that on the keyboard, which is usually the way that I like, you just select the cell that has the drop-down menu, you press Alt and down arrow, and you're going to have the options ready for you to pick. If you don't want to pick any, just press Escape, and you move back into selecting whatever cell you want to work on. Now, if we want to do that by selecting a list that we have aside, let's write accounting, finance, audit, and let's go for another drop-down menu. Data validation, allow a list, we select those, I'm good, okay, and you'll see that it will automatically take the input from the list that I have actually selected. Now, where do we usually use a drop-down list? I have created a simple example for you guys that is based on the capital budgeting assumptions. So you know that capital budgeting is the process of selecting the most profitable project on a term that usually exceeds a year. So we have a project, and this project has the following cash flows. So the cash flow 0, which is the cash outflow, is negative, and we have the following cash flows for the next coming 9 years. And we have a cost of capital that I'm gonna discuss in a bit. And I just have to find the NPV based on 3 different scenarios. And whenever I'm trying to find anything that has or based on multiple options, automatically the drop-down menu would pop up. So I automatically create a scenario. And next to the scenario, I put 3 different options: base, optimistic, pessimistic. And when I say base, it's the usual case that I have. Optimistic is something that would be positive for me, so the NPV should be higher, and vice versa for the pessimistic. So optimistic is positive and pessimistic is negative. So based on NPV assumptions, guys, we know that if we go back to finance, and I'm going to go to the whiteboard, we can see that the NPV is based on a formula that has the cost of capital in the denominator. So the higher the cost of capital is, the lower the NPV is. So if I'm working on a pessimistic scenario, I want to have the cost of capital higher. And if I'm going for an optimistic scenario, the cost of capital should be lower, because lower in the denominator will give me a higher output in the end. So this is what I've done. Let's go back to the Excel sheet. We can see that I've created in the NPV calculation sheet the following table. And as I've said before, I had a cost of capital. So I've built the cost of capital based on a nested if assumption. I've told Excel that if I specify in the drop-down menu that it is a base scenario, then the cost of capital is 10%. If it's an optimistic scenario, then it should be something positive, so cost of capital should be less. I'm going to set it as 8%. And if it's a pessimistic scenario, so it's a negative scenario, negative outlook, I'm going to increase my cost of capital to 12% so that I will end up with a lower NPV, net present value. So I go back to the operating model and let us navigate the whole aim of this video, which is the drop-down menu. So as you can see, guys, the base scenario is almost 4.5K. If I go for something positive, it means that the R is down. It means that the answer should be up, and this is what we get. If I want to go for something negative, it's a pessimistic scenario. It's a negative outlook. So NPV should be even lower than the base, which was 4.5, and we're going to get a 3.8. This is where I usually tend to use the drop-down menu because it can prove to be very handy, very helpful, and it can, as I've said before, add that special cream on top to your model that would help you get very flexible with the result that you want to show. I hope that you have enjoyed the video. If you like it, please hit that like button and subscribe to stay notified of the videos that will be coming soon. Thank you, guys.